We're live.
Yeah,
Hi, everyone.
Whoa, guys, hi. Okay. Apologies for the 2-minute delay. That was totally my fault. And welcome to our spoiled yak on Run On.
We're so
Yay!
excited. And we have Remy here with us.
Woohoo,
Yeah.
hello. Thanks
Okay,
for
let's
having
let's
me.
let's all introduce ourselves in order, though. Anisa, go on.
Hi, I'm Anisa.
I'm Parma, and today we have with us Rimi, who is a returning guest. And she is, of course, an avid K-drama fan, but also an excellent writer and recently an editor of Soul Beats, which is a great website. You should go read their articles there.
Yes,
Okay.
we also review K-dramas.
Yes.
They do. And we did a little yak a while back, and Anisa and I loved the drama so much that we promised that if we kind of stuck to it till the end, we would come back and do a proper spoiled yak. So that's why we're here.
We're back. Spoiler alert, we loved it. So we wanted to talk about it. And we're doing something a little... Oh, first of all, Happy Lunar New Year. And Happy Valentine's Day. A lot of stuff's going on. But we wanted to do something special with our topics. So, because the whole drama is so full of movie references, we thought it'd be fun to do movie references for our topic titles. So if you know the movie, just guess, and we'll put your comment up if you get it right. So
yeah, we'll probably put your comment up regardless.
We always put your comments up because we love your comments.
But this audio is going to also be part of our podcast later on. So our podcast listeners are going to know how smart you are at having guessed the movie reference.
Exactly. We'll give you shout outs. So general thoughts, everyone. Remy, go first since you're our guest.
Woohoo! So first and foremost, I loved Run On. I mean, I typically tend to skip quite a few scenes in dramas because there's so much repetition of tropes and ideas, a lot of dialogue. And Run On was just fresh and engaging throughout its run. So I loved it. I didn't really skip a lot of it. There were side stories that hooked me as much as the main romance story. I wasn't very fond of the Young-ha and Dan Sodana romance, and we'll touch upon that. But beyond that, I thought it was a fantastic show. Adored it. Loved the soundtrack. Sorry by 2F, that song has now made it into my permanent Spotify playlist.
Yeah, the soundtracks were pretty.
I agree.
They were earworms.
Definitely. The music was great. I was constantly listening to the OST for a while when I was writing about the show.
Yeah. I have to say that, maybe I should say this later, but there's that OST that comes on at the end of episode 6. That's sorry. I spent a week asking everyone, what is the song? Please tell me, before it finally went up on.
Yeah, they really get us with the releasing it in the episode, and then they wait a little bit before it's actually officially released as a song, and then you're good marketing strategy. What about you, Forma?
I really love the OST, of course, but I wasn't listening to it so much on loop. What I was doing is something I almost never do, which is rewatching episodes. I don't do that. Because I mean, maybe I do it 6 months, 8 months later, but I don't immediately go back and rewatch an episode. But I had to, because often I would feel like they had this entire exchange and I felt the energy and kind of it felt really heavy and impactful and I had feelings, but I didn't quite catch all of the dialogue. So I had to go back and rewatch so that this time I got the foreshadowing. I got what certain dialogues meant connected to certain other scenes that happened at the end of the episode. It was full. Yeah.
Yeah. I really agree with what you said about rewatching them immediately, because I started watching this when I started recapping it. And then I told my sister about it and I was trying to convince her. And then eventually I was like, she wears the same kind of outfits that you do. And she was like, okay, I'm watching it. And then afterwards I was like, you only watched it because she has the same fashion. She was like, no, I would have watched it anyway. But so we watched it together. I kind of watched it again with her. I would watch it, and then the end we were on the same page. But like, it's so good to rewatch even immediately because I was watching an interview with the 4 main actors, and Im Shi-won was saying how like the most enjoyable part of this is like the dialogue is so like delicious for an actor. Like you like gives it a lot to like chew on and express, and it's true. Like it's so complex and layered, and it's like really entertaining, and you can tell that they're also really enjoying it, and they're really. Yeah. And it does. It gives you so many feelings. Like I would go back and be like, "Oh my god, that conversation needs." Like at the end of episode 6, I think I like rewound that scene like 4 times.
Yeah, that was like one of the most romantic things, swoon-worthy things I've seen in K-dramas, and we've seen a lot of like swoon-worthy romantic things, but that was beautifully done.
Yeah. And the end of episode 2, I was like, I mean, sorry, 8. It was better than an episode 8 kiss. I was like, this is romance.
Yeah.
The awkwardness after the confession somehow just made it more real, and just like I felt like I was intruding in a personal moment. It was perfect. But also, you know what really stood out to me about episode 6? The ending. Okay, so for people who are okay with spoilers, haven't watched episode 6, let us just explain what we're talking about. This is a scene where Miju is like half asleep, and you have Sangyeom kind of like looking at her, like I think she's half asleep in a car,
and she's half drunk. She's very drunk.
And she's half drunk. She's very drunk.
She's quite drunk. And
he's just waiting outside the car while she's sleeping it off, and then suddenly she just says, okay, what's the exact dialogue?
Can you like me?
Can you please like me? And he's like, I already am.
And then they insert that music right at that moment, and you're just like.
And the thing is, you don't expect this particular moment with these two, right? They had been pretty reserved in some ways. I mean, they had almost kisses. They had like kind of these tense moments, like where Miju came up really close to Sangyeom, and he was the one who was drunk that time. There were these moments that had happened, but there was this kind of restrained distance between the two of them. So you don't expect that moment to happen, but it happens, and you know.
And you know what's so great about that moment and like so many other things is that it's played then as a really romantic moment. And then later on, I think it's in episode 9 when they have that whole conversation where he gives her the shoes and he's like, hey, I'm moving out. And she's like, wait, what? What? Like, I thought we were, like, what do you mean you're moving out? And then she tells him, and then he's like, I'm just doing what you asked. I'm liking you. And she's like hurt by that because she's like, you don't need to do me a favor, but here's him like confessing, but he's so awkward that he doesn't know how to express himself. So like there's all these callbacks to moments that like take on a different meaning later on. And I really love that, like that complexity of going back to earlier moments, but not just in a way of like, oh, hey, remember this moment? Here you go again. Like a lot of dramas just do this, like, hey, remember episode 5 when like this happened? But it doesn't add anything to the story, but it's like so... Everything builds their relationship and builds the characters in a really great way.
Yeah.
So
it does. And again, I mean, I know we're really like our podcast listeners are tired of us talking about this, but we have issues with banter that's glib for no reason. This drama, after the heartbreak of Record of You, this drama came on, and the thing is, okay, we'll come back to this later. Like how quickly I fell for this drama was ridiculous. But from practically the first scene, the first dialogue, everything was just pat. They didn't seem to miss a beat, but then they would have this pause and an awkward moment. Like the other person didn't quite get what this particular like super witty remark actually meant. And that happens in real life. And that was the difference between a glibly written script that the actors are just memorizing and like, I don't know, vomiting out, and a considered script where the dialogue is smart, but the actors are actually acting it out. And there is a realistic, silence between the exchange as the other person processes it. Am I making sense?
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
no, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think that they did a great job with like showing these two slowly begin to communicate better. Like one of the viewers, CBMe, communicates that, and it's great that they showed how communication, even between people who are clearly into each other, doesn't just magically happen. And I agree. Like at the beginning, they are so different from one another, right? Like she's really into movies. He doesn't like movies. He runs. She's like zero exercise
They're not
at
even
all.
awake at the same time.
Yeah, they're not even awake at the same time. And like through the course of the drama, we slowly see them start to combine their worlds together. Like
Yeah.
she starts to change the timings she's up. He starts to watch movies with her. She starts running, and we talked about the scene in episode 9 where he gives her the shoes and he's like, "I'm moving out," or whenever that happens. But and she's just, she was really hurt because like he just sprung it on her out of nowhere. Like if he liked her, he'd have been communicating that the whole time, that he's thinking of moving out. But we see towards the end of the drama when Ki Sung Kyum is taking a decision. Before he takes that decision, like say the situation with his father, having not done anything about his sisters, like that whole scandal, like he discusses it with her. So I really loved how they slowly, like it was so nicely shown, these two people with very different worlds, very awkward with one another at first. They slowly began to come together, and the pace of that combining of their worlds was spread out very evenly, really nicely throughout the show. And I think that contributed to the kind of banter that we saw, where it seemed so natural and so believable, so beautifully done.
Totally agree. Yes, shout out to Saya, Dr. G. Yeah, we had way too many conversations about banter on the podcast. So before we move on to the next topic, I just want to say, like, did nobody get the reference from the topic title? No,
Well, let me bring back the topic. I think
Yeah.
people just forgot what the topic title was.
Yeah.
Which was, for our audio only listeners, You Had Me at Hello.
And this drama definitely had me at hello. I fell in love with the first scene. Before they talked, like when they put their shoes on in that side-by-side scene, I was like, yes, this is my people. I don't know. It's just something about the aesthetic and like the feeling. It just got me immediately. Yes! Nayayan, you got it. Jerry Maguire.
Well done! Hey, Dr. Chi got it too.
Yes, good job. It's very obvious. They're not very difficult. These are like very obvious ones. We just wanted to have some fun.
And Jerry Maguire was the big theme throughout this drama as well.
I was also thinking, like, should we use Show Me the Money for this? Because like the drama definitely showed us the money. Gave us the good stuff.
That's right. So Nikki Potter has a really good point that they basically use the conversation to build something instead of just using, really amazing lines for clicks. And yeah, they did. Every dialogue, every exchange that they had was building the relationship, letting them get a bit closer. And I think the drama does a really good job of juxtaposing the first scene with the final scene where Miju's like, hey, did we just have a moment where we were perfectly in sync? Do you remember the first time we met and how we could barely talk to each other?
That was really great.
And you can actually see their relationship building from that first episode to the final episode. And Miju's words were true because we as the audience have seen the progress in their language with each other. Also, Nayayan also points out that they agreed to keep using formal language. And that was also just something that I really liked, how much they like there was some hurt feelings about the other person not understanding each other, especially on Miju's part. But by the end of it, they could effectively tell each other, hey, this is how I want to do something. And the other person considered it and either accepted or rejected it. But it was like, that is the level of communication you want in relationships. So
yeah,
this is a great Valentine's Day movie.
Yeah, this was like a genuine connection between the two. You could feel it. It was so real and was so believable and so nicely done.
Yeah.
So we agree that we love them together, but I also wanted to talk about them individually because I think they were such amazing and unusual characters. So should we move on to the next topic, Pharma?
Mm-hmm. Yes, let's do that. Okay. Hold on. Let me find the next topic. There you go.
So this topic is Little Orphan Miju, and obviously it's about Miju's character and her journey. So what did you think about Miju's character? Rimi, you go
You want to
first.
go first?
Okay, sure. I think Miju is instantly very likable. They definitely chose the right actress. Shin Se-kyung, right? That's her name.
Shin Se-kyung, yeah.
She speaks English. Miju is supposed to speak English, so like they definitely chose the right actress. I think she made Miju very believable. Like Shin Se-kyung is super pretty, but she dressed down. Her hair was really wavy and really messy most of the time, like mine. So like she kind of dressed down and she really looked her role. Of course, while still looking super pretty, but like she really looked her role. She made Miju very likable, very believable. I loved how honest she was. And the thing I loved most of all, there are a lot of dramas where they show that a character has a passion for something and they're so into it, but you never see them actually doing it. Like there's this much love drama called Because This Life Is Our First. And honestly, the lead, she's supposed to be a drama script writer. She supposedly loves it, but like you never once see her watching a drama.
I pointed this out in our podcast.
Yeah, I'm just like what? But Miju's like she's constantly writing and she's constantly at work. Like you see her so involved and so deeply into this thing that she loves, right? Like it was so believable, so real, and Shin Se-kyung's portrayal was so nice. I feel like actually Miju and Sodana, these two are my favorite characters throughout, even more than Ki Sung-kyung. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
How can we choose? I don't know. They're all my babies.
That's true.
I agree with your comments. Some of you had said, Ella mentioned, and also Natalie, about how she has like this dark backstory. And like, I remember in the beginning, people were like, oh, are they going to go into her backstory? But I agree that it was really nice that it just kind of came out, like her rough childhood and all the things that happened to her. It just came out organically when things happened that kind of brought those moments back for her, which is so much more realistic than like having like a long flashback sequence to, like, and then it wouldn't have fit with like where she is now as a person, and how much she's like, you got such a sense of like what a journey she's come on and what she's been through, and like how Mei has been there for her and what they've built together. And then there's all that part about like how, Sung-kyung can do the same thing for Woo-shik, the way that, Mei helped her and like so there was a lot of this like mentoring sort of stuff happening between different characters, which I loved, because it was like passing on, like you received something and now you're passing that on to others. And like, she was kind of I guess like the nucleus of that in the drama. Like she was the one who did that, and it sort of like spread outward from her to a lot of the other characters. And I really loved that. And I noticed this in the episode 16, where like it's as if they're like passing hugs around to each other. Like one person will give a comforting hug, and then that like she hugs Sung-kyung when he finds out what's going on with his sister, and then he hugs his sister, and then like I think Dana comforts Younghwa, and then Younghwa goes to Sung-kyung and cries on his shoulder, and he hugs him. And then like later on, when Younghwa finds about Yejun's feelings, he hugs him, and they cry together. So it was just like, I don't know, I loved that. That was really nice.
So I completely agree with everything you guys said. Okay. Her backstory is just better not shown in a linear fashion, because we know the story of the orphan girl who doesn't get treated well by society. We know the story. We have seen the story. We know it in a realistic manner. It's more interesting because we only get to see the snippets of Miju's memories when connected with something that is happening right now. So she goes through something. It reminds her of something else that had happened in the past that was a direct consequence of being an orphan child without having a parent to protect or support her. And that is something like she either mentions in a glib line, or maybe it's something in a quiet moment, or something that is just her expression, and it's just perfect, the perfect way to reveal a backstory. Also, I really liked, I know I could have totally gone into more about Mei and her relationship, but I like that we got snippets here, snippets there, and we got to see that in an overall way, Mei kind of made her as you guys said, did what Songyum is doing for Wushik, but also that May's family had actually adopted her. So it's not that she was orphan Miju anymore. She has a family. It's her found family. And even though it's not like a daily thing that they're constantly pushing at us, it's there and it gives her moral support. So it was just lovely to find that out slowly.
I also really love the combination of like being outspoken and being realistic that she has, which I don't think I've seen in a character before, where she can't hold back. Like when she sees something that she doesn't agree with, like she has to say something, but then also like she's an underemployed freelancer, like totally relatable. So there are times where she's just like swallow her pride and apologize when she's not in the wrong because she doesn't have the power. And I was like, wow, this is like extremely real and kind of hard to watch, but I love it, Yeah.
And they did all of this without making her like a Candy, right? With who always has pure intentions and all that. Like she was just very realistic and very believable.
Agreed.
All of that. Dr. Chi writes that she didn't quite like Miju's wardrobe because it was ill-fitting, but I kind of thought that was trendy. As you can see, I wear really loose-fitting clothes myself. So
I think it's just a style. Yeah. I like her style. It's not my style.
I thought she was completely unstylish, and that was like the point of the character.
No. Sangam was unstylish. I'm sorry. His clothes were a disaster.
Completely agree. I went out looking for pants like Miju. I wanted ill-fitting pants like that. Man, unfortunately, they would never, quote unquote, ill-fit me the way they ill-fit her.
It's because she's
skinny.
Yeah.
Shapely. Moving on.
Let's not go there.
Oh, God.
But speaking of Sangyum's wardrobe, unless we have something else to say about Miju, we can move on to his character.
Just give me a second to go through all of the comments. Unfortunately, in my excitement, I haven't been looking.
Yeah, there's definitely a disagreement in the comments about whether her style is amazing or if it's terrible. So I did not expect this to be a point of contention. This is hilarious.
Neither did I. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is
Sangam the Extraterrestrial. It's a very obvious. Nobody needs to guess. We all know what that refers to.
Yeah, you don't get extra points for guessing this one.
Okay, somebody else go first this time.
So,
Anisa.
Okay, yeah, I can go. I think we've never seen a drama hero like this before. He is awkward. He's non-toxic. He is not full of himself at all. He has trouble communicating, but he's so like willing to listen to people, which was probably one of the first things I noticed about him, is how like he really observes and listens to people. And he, even though he doesn't, he doesn't have that. And I mean, we talked about this before, like we don't really get told if he's neurodivergent or if it's a result of his upbringing or if it's a combination of both. But he has a very different way of relating to people. He doesn't do that thing where he's constantly reacting to the other person in a way that makes them like super comfortable in the way that like most people are socialized to do, and that like a lot of us do automatically. He doesn't necessarily like constantly smile and constantly respond to like fill the silence, but whatever he says is so full of substance. He's never like rude, even if other people sometimes take his bluntness as rudeness. But like, I don't know, I just loved everything about him. I loved how willing he was to admit his mistakes and learn and move on and grow. Yeah, I felt so sad for him so many times. Like he was so bachara. Like he was so like there's that one scene where she tells him like you should love yourself, and he's like, oh, I don't remember the exact lines because it's been a while, but he's just like, it never occurred to him that he could love himself, and that's just like so devastating. Like he says these things really matter-of-factly, and then you're just like, oh, my heart just broke and fell on the floor in like little pieces. So yeah, I just wanted to like adopt him, and then Miju adopted him, so it was okay.
And I like that she treated him like that. I'm sorry, Remy, go on.
Oh no, I was gonna say, and he does all of this despite being incredibly rich. Like our usual wealthy K-drama character is incredibly arrogant. So he's and being incredibly good looking. I mean, so he's incredibly rich, but he doesn't come across as being arrogant or even though he clearly throws his money around, right? Like the time he was at the filming with the foreigners where Michu was acting as a translator. He like shifted the entire production crew to a better hotel on his own dime. That's ridiculous. I mean, he clearly has a lot of money. He gives it away freely. Without, like, I don't know. I feel like people who normally have that much money, like, I don't know, can come across as arrogant, like spending so much, but he just does it so naturally.
Yeah.
It's very strange, but really nicely handled.
You make such a good point, because in most rich characters in that situation would either just get their own separate hotel room for themselves and not care about the rest of the crew, or they would be generous, but they would be like making a big deal about the fact that they, out of their great generosity and richness, are doing this for everyone. But he just like kind of does it and like moves on. And then like the May and that other producer are like thanking him, and he's just like, whatever. Like he doesn't make a big deal about his generosity. He's just like, I have a lot of money. Here you go. Like, use it. Yes, Porama.
Also, this is what makes him so different from other K-drama heroes of, yesteryears. A chaebol who does something like this would immediately kind of throw it at the Candy's face and be like, do something for me. And it would be something ridiculous, like go on a date with me or go on a walk with me. But the point is, it'll be used as a leverage. He would never just do it because he's seeing people cramped in a space that he considers unhygienic and just thinks, let me help them because I can, which is Sangyum's whole character.
Yeah. But like his character, like you said, is like the bedrock is the sense of justice and the sense of like fairness that he has. So that's why he couldn't he couldn't bear to watch what Ushik was going through, right? And he was like, I have to do something about myself, and I have to kind of give Ushik hope. Or even though it didn't work out, but like he assaulted those guys and like he confessed to it because he himself wanted to be punished so that Ushik could see that they should be punished. It was such a different approach to take to things.
Like CB Me said, he treats money as a tool to accomplish what needs to be done. It's not like you said, Porama, where he's using it to emotionally blackmail people with the power that he has over them. He's just like, oh, look, I have more power than you in this situation. Thus, the fair thing for me to do is to use the power I have so that you don't have to put yourself in a bad position because you're actually like in a much worse place than I am. Like he's just very clear-eyed about that.
Yeah, that's true.
The auntie's at the hospital. So like when Miju is sick and she's in the hospital and there's like these ajamas in the next bed that are talking so much, and he's like, what can I do for you? And she's like, I want to sleep. So he goes and like talks to them and whispers. And
No. Hold on. You need to explain the entire situation. So he comes to visit Miju when she's in the hospital, and then the aunties won't let her go to bed, and she's practically in tears, and she's like, just make them stop. And he's like, I'll take care of it. And then he goes, and you're like, what is he gonna do? And then he just sits there and chats with the aunties so that they don't disturb Miju.
Very quietly.
Just an example of how different his character is. And he's so likable that way.
He knows to do the important things.
Is
what we're saying. Yeah. We kind of already talked about the next topic, so we could just go through it quickly.
Yes.
And like just add whatever we didn't already mention. An OTP to remember.
Woohoo.
This one's a reference to a Korean movie, so if you know what it is. It was also referenced in the drama. So is there anything about the main romance that we didn't mention yet that we want to talk about?
The main romance. Let me see.
I think the breakup deserves a mention as well,
Yeah.
It's a mandatory thing in all Korean dramas where like episodes 13, 14, 15, 16, somewhere there has to be a bit of a breakup or a long distance or whatever. To show how I think close they are and how they overcome this fight or this distance. But even here, I didn't enjoy the episode where they were apart. Like episode 13, in my opinion, was the weakest episode. But I feel like the reason for which it was done, like Miju being kind of incredibly uncomfortable with Sun Kyung's father spying on her, I think it's very valid. And then her not knowing how to handle that and then saying things she doesn't necessarily mean. Like, I feel like in many dramas, this breakup or this distance is like really contrived. But here, I really related. Like, I understood why she did it because I would hate it as well. And I'm sure most of our viewers or listeners would hate it as well. So,
Yeah, the conversation they had outside her house was like gutting. Like it was hard to watch, but it was so good because like I mean there was so much going on there, right? Like she is literally like she's basically totally, you know, justified in all that she's saying. She's like, let's not talk right now. And he's like, no, it's okay. Like, tell me what you're actually feeling. And then she's like, oh, but like these emotions are my own to handle. Like, I don't need to make you handle them. But he's like, he always wants to know what she's thinking. Right. And then she tells him. And what I also found was really good is before this, like the encounter with his dad was so terrifying. Like, I've never felt like physically threatened while watching a rich parent be like to a poor person, like, you're not good enough for my kid. But I was like, oh my God, this is scary. So like you can feel how traumatized she is by that. And then like the whole thing where he's like don't what did he say to her? Burma, you're much better at remembering like the exact dialogue than me. I'm sorry for like butchering this. But where he's like, let's just take some time. Like, just do me the favor of giving me some time. Like, so yeah, I really love that whole thing. And there was no noble idiocy. It was just very real.
absolutely. Like Hisa, there's a commentator called Hisapi who said the writer took all the tropes and subverted them. So many familiar setups turned out so unexpectedly. So true. And like, I think this was one of them.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah.
Hisa.
Yeah.
Another one was the bribe at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Where Michu took it. And then Sangyam found out. And she's just like, yeah, I took it. I'm poor. I need money. And he's like, okay, I forgive you.
Yeah. And also it was interesting that she never said I gave it back. Because that wasn't the point. Like,
the point was that she took it. Exactly.
Yeah, I was kind of frustrated with that initially because I was like, why isn't she telling him that she gave it back? But then over time, I kind of realized, as you said, that was never the point. The point was that it was offered and therefore the insult was offered. And it doesn't matter what she did because at the end of the day, she wasn't the one who had gone and be like, give me money. It wasn't her intent that matters. It's his father's intent, which was just.
And the inherent like reality of their differences in class that is always going to be there, you know, like that's just a thing that they have to deal with. Like she says to him in that scene where she tells him that she took it and she's like, this is the kind of person, like this is the kind of life that I've lived. People have always felt like they can just buy my cooperation or buy my silence or buy whatever they want from me because I'm like, this is the position that I'm in society. And I was like, oof, like what do you even say to that?
And in typical Sankyam manner, he let it go.
He did. But I did like this one line. Thanks, Nayanan. I've kind of forgotten that line that when Miju kind of says that, you know, give me that space, give me some, it's that whole breakup dialogue. He's like, do you think it was polite to like say that to me? It's that hit me because he had come there trying to fix things, keep them together somehow because he really didn't want his father's meddling to separate them. Basically, he was clinging to Miju and Miju was being self-protective. She had had relationships before and they had talked about the history of Miju's relationships. She kind of ran away whenever things got complicated because she just didn't feel like any of those things were worth committing. And if she felt like her self-respect was threatened even in the slightest manner, she was like, I'm out. But this time she just couldn't stay out.
No, and he was not upset that she wanted to break up. He was like, how could you make me say it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that was such a great character detail because it like goes back to her running away. And so even in this moment, she's still running away because she's like not willing to be the one to say it. And she makes him say it. And he's like, did you have to make me say it? Like, what about respecting my feelings? And it like goes back to his inherent sense of justice where he's like, that was unjust. Like, even in this like emotionally charged, really upsetting moment, he can't just let it go. Yeah.
And all of this points to some really strong like characterization and really strong dialogue writing and like scene like plotting. Like overall just really strong writing and a solid interpretation of the characters by the actors and portrayal.
Oh,
Just overall,
I'm
super well done. Characterization, right dialogues, writing, on point.
Before we move on from Sangyam, I think this needs a mention. It's that, so we know that Sangyam is like there was some neurodivergent arc, so to speak. Like he had been suppressing a lot of emotions from childhood that created issues that he never got help for, and clearly none of his family is even going to think about therapy, not with his dad being an assemblyman. So there was all of that stuff, and he was dealing with all of those things himself. He was clearly somebody who knew that there were things that he wasn't being able to process, but he was just like, well, I'll take my time and see if I can, and if I don't understand, then I don't understand. What can I do about it? And his good friends, like I really like that, I forget the name of the guy who would always beat him on the track, his friend.
Young Il.
Yeah. Young Il was kind of okay with Sangyong being the way he was. I mean, out of everybody else who was kind of friends with him before he met Miju and Younghwa, Young Il was okay with him not knowing that he'd been dating somebody for 10 years.
I love their friendship so much.
Exactly. So it's just, I really liked that they didn't exactly spell out any kind of diagnosis, because that wasn't necessary. What was necessary was that, yes, he didn't think like a neurotypical person. He didn't process information the same way. And it was difficult for him to create new relationships and, strong ones, and then keep them, because keeping them is hard. You have to remember people's feelings. You have to interpret what they're trying to say. All of this stuff is really hard. And he learns that with Miju. And also Younghwa, I think we should definitely give Younghwa credit, because he's just like, Hyung! And he's decided that they're just going to be like, connected through the finger touch forever.
The E.T. brotherhood. This director really loves E.T. because there were a lot of E.T. moments where people were just like doing the finger touch. Oh, it's great.
Okay.
I agree that Young Il was fantastic. We should move on, because otherwise we're going to be here for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
That is true. We kind of covered the next topic a bit, didn't we, though?
Which is, yes. Okay, so is there anything else that you want to add? This topic is standing up to abusive family, and the movie reference is going to the mattresses.
Right.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to add. Borma, you go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
I love how you raise your hand like you're in class.
Okay, so the one thing that I found, it was, I've seen a lot of K-dramas deal with abusive family situations, and deal with it amazingly. But yes, Natalie, you're right. The Godfather.
Yes, go Natalie.
But it's something else to watch his father kind of do that thing where he very clearly views every member of the family as a pawn to progress his own game. And if they're not being useful, then they can be discarded. The way he treated his daughter was, I don't even know what to call it.
That was like, it left me feeling disgusted. I was like, that was
so gross.
Filthy. Like, that was
upsetting.
Terrible.
Yeah. So, and therefore, and the thing is, of course, his family concluded that we can't do anything because we're family. What are we going to do about this? Aside from, let's not support this man anymore.
Yeah.
Which was its own punishment, which was fine, actually. But
I think,
it's just...
I'm just going to add to that.
Yeah,
I feel like the depiction of their family was slightly different here than in other dramas again, because there was already a lot of distance between the members of like the brother, sister, and like the parents when they were introduced. Like, they're not living in the same house. They're not constantly in each other's lives, asking each other what's happening. Like, I feel like physically and emotionally there was a lot of distance, and there wasn't any, except, to the outer world. But like, I don't know. I feel like there wasn't as much interference from family and as much, I don't know. I feel like usually these families there's a lot more, like they're much more close, like they live together. There's
It
more
was a
like in
different
each other's
dynamic.
affairs. Yeah.
Yeah, because the children were raised kind of in their careers and like at a
Independent.
distance and yeah, without
Yeah.
much
Of the
parental
parents.
attention. Yeah. But I found that so nuanced because it is like a different type of dynamic that we've seen before. And we talked about this in the Little Yak that we talked about, but like there's so much history in the way they communicate with that they don't communicate with each other, where like there's that dinner scene, right? Or that lunch scene where like the dad throws a glass and cuts Sangam's face. And then his
Yeah.
sister just like slowly moves the other glass away from him. But like nobody is shocked, no one's surprised, no one's
They've seen
they're just
that
like, oh,
movie
this is
before.
normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a good depiction of how abusive families work, because that is what happens. It just becomes normalized, and then like you know, we have that scene at the end where
Ella
he
Travis points that out. Yeah, are we talking about the father? Because we're going to talk about this at the ending. Ella, give us a moment. I think it's better if we discuss how everything pans out at the end.
So on the topic of abusive families, then there's also, I think Dana's family is also worth mentioning here, because there was a lot of tension there as well. Like her fathers had these children from so many different women, and they only showed the three in the drama: Swatewung, Sodana, and the brother who was like fighting Dana for the company. And even there, I thought there was
such a great word for this guy. He's a nopa. The one who's like a nopa. If you haven't read her Drama Addict Diary, the most recent one, she called not the older brother, but the one who's been like falsified to be her older brother. He's nopa, like not an opa.
Yeah. Saya comes up with the best names.
She does.
That's brilliant.
She has a gift.
Read Saya's Drama Addict Diaries, please.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So Nopa, he was also clearly, I think, a different kind of abuse, especially in the sense that how Dana had to fight him for her rights.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But what was heartbreaking is kind of the way things panned out between Dana and her father. Like she couldn't really. There is no way that you can win this fight if it's against your parent. And I mean, I guess vice versa, but not really, because parents tend to be able to get what they want from their children unless the children cut ties completely. So if you're going to stay tied to your parents and your parents are abusive, you can't really get back to them unless you're Nopa, because Nopa clearly had absolutely no affection for the father. He was there for the inheritance.
Yeah.
So
whereas she had a much more complex, like she was hurt, but then like she really cared about the company and she didn't want to lose that, right? Like she could have just left, but then all of what she built in her professional life, which was really important to her, and like kudos for the drama to have like a woman who's that committed to her career and is not willing to just be like, yeah, I'm in love now. Let's just
like committed enough to break up with
and
this boy she loves, because he clearly is not suited to that world. Also, like he's so young, like dating him will get her in all sorts of scandal and like more issues and challenges to her authority. So like real kudos to depicting her commitment.
And also, Hisapi reminds us that Dana's brother really deserved a hug.
Yeah.
Poor boy.
He was such a sweetheart.
Poor thing. Oh.
I just didn't know what to like. So this actor is Che Jae-hyun. I hadn't seen him in anything else, but oh my god, he was just so happy to see Dana when they met for the first time, and he was sick and she had just come apparently for some other reason to casually see this not a stepbrother, half brother that she had only heard about but never met before. And he was so grateful that she had come to visit. And I could completely understand his puppy-like devotion to her. Even though initially I was like, wait, what? Why? But then it totally made sense.
But also, like, who wouldn't be completely impressed with Dana and just want to follow her around all the time? I would.
That is totally true.
Even if she was being mean to me, I'd be like, can I just be in your presence?
Yeah, true. He was totally adorable, Dr. Chi, you're right. I think we saw just about enough of the Idol Brothers story, though, Natalie, because it's a story. It's a very obvious story. He's
Yeah.
a half brother. He would never have been brought into the family home if it wasn't for the fact that their dad realized that all of his children have some kind of a heart issue, and what if one of them pop off and he needs a spare? So he just
Yeah.
pulled all of them in. Their father was kind of a horror.
Yeah.
It was
So-
interesting too, right? Where they had like on the surface, he seems less horrible than Assemblyman Key. Like his manner is
He
not
reads
as
comics.
abrasive. Yeah, he's like a little more he's not as like overtly aggressive and
Evil.
mean. But if you look at what he's done,
To his
it's
family.
horrifying. Yeah.
Terrible.
Like she didn't even have her birth registered for 10 months. Can you imagine doing that to your own child? Like
Yeah, and other things as well. What was it? Was it a charity run? Oh, there was something that Dana like planned from the start, and at the very end, he pulled it out from under her, and he gave that credit to
yeah.
Nopa.
He's like, your brother's useless. So let me just
Yeah.
steal your accomplishments and give them to him so that he has
I
something
mean, that's
to his name.
terrible. So
I loved how he wiped out at the race, though. That was really satisfying.
it's like a moment of gratification.
But it also tells you how blind our fathers, because I mean, you can only do this thing, snatching her accomplishment and giving it to her brother, as long as you're alive. Completely incompetent heir of yours ever going to live up to what Dana is. He
Yeah.
can't. The mask will fall.
Yeah, but I mean the denial involved in sexism is very powerful. So
Yeah. I thought it was a pretty impressive way of showing that too.
yes, it was.
Mhm.
Anissa,
And I mean, Nopa could have been dating a much younger woman, and that would have been acceptable
Okay.
and cool, and his competency
Yeah.
wouldn't have been questioned. But Dana couldn't date Yonghwa without that being an issue, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. There's also another aspect of it. We should talk about it in the next segment. Anissa, can we jump to the one after the next one? Because I
Sure.
think that's more relevant to what we're talking about right
Let's
now.
do that. Yeah.
Okay, so this is our next one, Yonghwa and Dana.
I am the
movie
one with
references.
complaints. I have
Here's
so
looking-
many complaints.
Yeah,
Here's looking at you, kid. That's the movie.
Yeah.
Guess the movie.
everyone knows this movie.
Just okay. That's true.
but guess it anyway. Yeah. Yes, let's hear it because I think me and Paroma were like really totally on board with it. So
Maybe we should hear what you like about the romance first, and then I'll tell you what I don't like.
You're
Okay.
right, CVB. It's Casablanca.
There's Casablanca. There was a reference to the movie in the drama too. So
It was. Okay, so my thoughts, I'm not going to give general thoughts. I just wanted to talk about that, the reasons for that breakup. I don't think it was just because he was a much younger man. It was because he was at the cusp of starting this career as a painter, and he would have a long journey. And to have that journey kind of be overshadowed by Dana's journey, because it would become public that they're dating. And then soon it would be a situation of... because as an artist, he has to be independent, or otherwise it's completely overshadowed. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I figured that Dana would have considered all of these things, that staying in a relationship with her would mean that she could never have an independent growth as an artist. So, or a person for that matter. He's what, 22, 23? And
23. Yeah.
yeah, and his entire life would have just been like, oh, that's the guy that Dana dates or dated. And that's just a horrible thing to start with when you're that young. So, yeah, that's my thought. Okay.
Agreed. And
Go
what
on,
I
Ruby.
really loved about this couple is like in the beginning, we were all, because we're obsessive K-drama fans, we were like, is Miju a candy? Is she not a candy? And like, Younghwa is the candy, right? Like we're pretty clear on that at this point. He's a candy. He's like a poor student. He's really young. He's very naive. He's innocent. He has like a big heart that he just, he just gives it to people, and he like literally he just like gives honey to people. Like that's a very on the nose
Aw.
symbol. Like he's just like spreading sweetness wherever he goes.
He's super wholesome.
And I really liked that this was a secondary couple where they actually explored how difficult it would be to have a happy ending in this like typical K-drama Cinderella story setup. like in reality, how possible would it really be for two people like this, like a really rich person who's dealing with like power struggles in the company that they're trying to inherit from their parents, and a young like innocent person who's still like trying to figure out their life, and and like it was really well in the sense that you could totally see why they liked each other and were attracted to each other, and but like the same things that they loved about each other were kind of the things that made that impossible for them to be together then. And then there was like an opening, like a possibility that they might, get back together in the future. So I liked that.
Yeah. That, though I actually got really confused by that. But again, we save that for the end because that's the ending.
Okay, should I touch upon what I did not like?
Let's hear it.
So I have to say, I agree with a lot of what Anisa said. But at the same time, so I kind of disliked Young-ha from the get-go. Particularly once he started interacting with Dana, because I found him very forceful. She barely remembered his name. She didn't give him her phone number, but he kept trying to force this contact with her that she was not into, and that made me uncomfortable to watch. And then I found him pretty unprofessional. If I were an art student and I had this big commission, I think I'd be thrilled about the commission. I would be doing my best on that painting. I'd want to be displayed on the art gallery. Like, he's a poor student. He hasn't lived that life yet, but he should know how hard it is. And like his whole behavior where he's just like, oh, he's all about this romance and he's trying to flirt with her. He's not doing the painting. He's like delaying it. At one point he gets angry with her and he ruins the painting that he does have so far. Like, I was so angry because, my own experience, I've tried to write whatever. I know how hard it is. I'm sure other people know how hard it is. Like, I found him so unprofessional and I found him so forceful with Dana, especially at first before she developed an interest in him as well, that I couldn't like his character. And that dislike stayed with me till pretty much the very end. I just found him to be entitled and bratty and really not worth her time and energy till the very end. That was just, that was me.
Wow, interesting. I guess I kind of see that now that you pointed out, but to me, like the way that he pushed back against a lot of the things she said were pretty justified, because she says some pretty horrible things to him early on, like you're a peasant, and like she treats him like just like he exists just to fulfill her whatever she did. Like, she's extremely autocratic with him. And so I feel like part of that for him was just him like realizing the huge difference and the power that they each had and trying to like take some of that power. But I guess I can see where because he is still a man, some of that might come across as upsetting, although I didn't find it.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I do like that he pushed back on a lot of the points, like where she was being autocratic. But at the same time, I feel like he took it too far, and I was uncomfortable watching like some of his overt attempts to like try and get close to her. They made me slightly awkward.
So
and his unprofessionalism. Sorry, what I most disliked was his unprofessionalism. I've said this and I'll say it again. He was too unprofessional for my liking. So
okay,
I guess I'm like older than him enough that I'm just like, oh wow, you're such a kid. No form. Sorry.
Okay, so I agree with Rimi about the unprofessionalism thing, but I also think, see, I understand Young-ha, not the part where he's madly in love with this woman who wouldn't give him the time of the day, but she secretly likes him thing, because that's never happened to me. But I kind of get the part where he has been given this commission that could actually be really great for his career. And yes, if he could be completely detached about it and had no emotional investment, then yes, he probably would have just done the painting like he does his school assignments.
But then if he was detached, maybe he wouldn't have that kind of emotion that attracted Dana in the first place.
There is that. However, the paintings that Dana liked never had his emotions connected to a person. So it's not like he'll be completely incapable of creating a painting that she would love. And also, mind you, eventually the painting he ends up creating is not something like he usually creates. It's something that is inspired specifically by his feelings for her. So the end product is very much a product of their relationship.
Yeah.
But okay, this is the part where I understand him. But if you have, and this is not the romantic feelings part. It's sometimes what happens is, maybe I'm working on a project, and maybe the person I'm working for, there's something I really can't get on board with them, and or about them, or something about our communication is just not working out. I am going to try and not think about doing that project or giving that answer for as long as I can. And yes, I know it's unprofessional. It took me a while to kind of decide, hey, if it's not working out in the first client call, give it a second client call and end this. We are not going to draw it out, but I used to draw it out. I feel him. Younger
I do
me,
agree with this as well.
20-something me, I would have just been burying it. I would be ignoring emails. I would be like, I just do not want to deal with this. I have to say no to this person. That would have just ended it. But no, I couldn't do it because I couldn't explain to myself why I was feeling like this, because there was no actual concrete reason.
I do agree with this. Like, something about the project's not clicking, and you have to talk to the client that commissioned this project to get it right. And here he was not able to make that contact with Dana. So there I see, and even I agree, because this is something that occurred to me as well. I 100% agree. But I feel like I don't know, I just feel like because he layered in these romantic intentions, and, because he really, I feel like he really pushed himself into her life. Like, it went too far for me. But I really agree with you there, Parama, as well.
Yeah, I think what saved him for me is that when she did ask him to back off and be like, don't message me directly, he didn't. He stopped doing that. And even when they were in a relationship, yeah. So
poor
I think
Secretary Jung, man.
Oh my God, that was so cute.
He had such a tough life.
The poor man. And the thing is, I was like, okay, so because my brain is probably in the gutter, I don't know. I was like, wait, are they trying to show a kind of relationship between Dana and Secretary Jung? But no, it's not that. It's just that he felt this almost a avuncular, I don't know, feeling of needing to protect Dana. And so he would advise her or make decisions that would, make sure that nothing goes wrong for Dana's eventual plan. Because of all people, he was her teammate in her work. He was the one who, we even see that towards the end where she finally gets where she wants to get, and she steps out of the car, and they have that moment where she's like, we are here, and he's like, yeah, it happened because we stuck together. I love their teamwork
also
so much.
It seems to me, because there's that scene where she goes to the US and Taewong is like, did you come to see me? I'm so excited to meet you. She's like, no, I'm here for Jung. He's mine. I'm taking him back. And I was like, oh, this is probably like the one non-toxic adult that she's had in her life. Like almost like not a parental figure, but someone that actually was a mentor and like helped her. So that was really, I liked that a lot. And his cat.
I did.
Him and his cat.
And that was so cute with the scratch. Oh my God. And I love that Miju comes in, sees a scratch on his arm, and it's like, did Dana didn't do it? Because reasonable expectation. That's how Dana has set herself up. And he's like, no, it was my cat.
I also want to touch upon, this is something that's, because we're talking about romances. So wait, maybe I should wait if we are done with Dana.
Go on.
Okay. So I want to touch upon this. There was some LGBTQ representation in the show as well. Like, Naya points out, she reads, I was intrigued that the writer wrote me as asexual and even Dana as being bisexual. I'm not sure if Dana was bisexual or she was just using like the lesbian excuse.
Yeah.
But there are a few things to note. Like, other than, so there's firstly Dana using that she's lesbian as an excuse to get out of marrying some random person, or being forced into marriage. Then there is I forgot his name, Yonghwa's gay friend.
Yejun.
Yeah. And Yejun, eventually ending up with a boyfriend of his own. That's amazing. K-dramas rarely show such a positive, happy ending for gay characters. I barely have gay characters. So that was amazing. And his whole coming out arc. And May being asexual. And
Never
Still-
seen that before.
Yeah, asexual represent, that was amazing. And in a relationship with Secretary John. Fascinating. I think like there are three separate points to touch upon when you talk about LGBTQ within this drama, which is a lot more than I've seen ever. And let's say even though Yejun's story was very much on the side, I don't think it served any relevance to the main story at all. Like he didn't have to have a crush on Younghwa. What was the point of that? He didn't have to come out to his mother. Like, what was the point of showing that in the context of the main story? And they even at the very ending, they had this little scene of him introducing a boyfriend to Younghwa. None of this had to be there. It had no relevance to the main story. But that it was there at all, I think, is another example of like the slight shift in how Korean primetime dramas are treating LGBTQ characters.
Yeah.
It was just there as acceptance and tolerance. And it's a nice message to send across to viewers, regardless.
I completely agree. The one thing that bothered me about Dana, I think that because this was introduced so quickly in the beginning, was that she was basically co-opting the gay struggle for her own benefit, and I really hated it. And I was like, wait, this drama is so aware of itself about everything else. Why? And then I love that scene where she goes and apologizes to Yejun because she had been using that lie to shield herself. And
I love
I
how
was
this
glad
becomes like retrospectively makes itself less toxic, because there's also that scene where like Younghwa posts her photo on Instagram, and I was like, oh, like he just took a picture of her while she wasn't looking, and then you find out later that he asked her permission. I was like, oh, consent. There is consent. Yay! Now I don't have to hate Younghwa. It was great. Like, you know, you have this development, and the drama is like recognizing, you know, like we did this thing earlier on, maybe for plot reasons or character reasons, but then they like deal with it. They don't just drop it completely.
And I just want to read out for listeners, Mary Sue's comment, there's nothing wrong with May being with Secretary Jung. Asexual people can and do have relationships, and I really agree.
Absolutely.
Like, I love
and they
that
point
the drama,
that out. The drama addresses that. One of them asks a question and May answers it. It's actually properly addressed. I love
exactly.
that.
So I feel like none of this was like relevant to the main plot, but that was there at all. It's just a really nice message to send to viewers, younger viewers, whatever. Like, you know how stories can shape your point of view of the world. So I just like that. I think it's a nice message to send.
Yeah, agreed. Oh, also, CB points out, I agree, that there was a running theme of Dana being like, she was determined to be Miju's friend, and she kind of seemed really into Miju. She liked her right off the bat, and Miju was super resistant about it.
She's like, why do you keep acting like we're close? We're not close. Dana was like, I'm not doing that. She's like, you totally are. Stop telling me your secrets. So good.
No, I want to be close to you.
Stop ending up at my house drunk and like confiding in me. Why?
Yeah, there were scenes, there were like, I think twice Secretary Jong, poor thing, was like woken up from his sleep and had to drive Dana down to Miju's house. He's wearing like casual clothes. Hilarious.
Also, this is what I like about Dana. Once she realized that Secretary Jong was dating May, she voluntarily was like, I will stop bothering you during weekends now. Oh, so then you can't help but like the girl. Like, if you give her a reasonable situation where what she's doing is making another person unhappy or it's not working out, she'll be like, yeah, that makes sense. I'll back off.
Agreed.
Okay,
let's move on to the next topic. Yeah, we're over an hour here.
Okay, let's quickly talk about this. I mean, come on, guys. That the movie is in the quote.
Yeah, yeah, no credit because it's actually the title, Lost in Translation. So we wanted to talk about like, and we talked about this already some, but just about the communication, like the theme of communication, of miscommunication, and like how the characters really work on communicating with each other and where they get from the beginning to the end of the drama and how they progress. And like what Borma said about how in the end, Sangam and Miju were like, oh, like we were on the same page. And then there's that flashback of them at the police station where they're like talking at cross purposes and they're totally like saying different things. So yeah, any thoughts on that we haven't already mentioned?
I have one that's not, so far we've discussed the romances, but I'd like to mention this within a non-romantic context in the drama, which is the whole Wushik story arc, and the abuse that he was enduring at first in the team, and how he did not talk about it to anyone. Maybe it's not necessary, but I found that his keeping a silence, it was so important to his staying on the team and to keeping that peace within that team as by sacrificing himself and his well-being. That lack of communication, and then this is all concluded pretty early in the show, which I think is why it doesn't stand out. But to me, Wushik's story arc really stood out. And then pretty early on, we have him agreeing to open up and speak out about it to reporters, and then we see the repercussions of that, where he's kicked out of the team despite being the victim himself, and then how much difficulty later on Sangkyung has finding a team for him. So this is, I guess, somewhat tied into communication, but like a very overt example of when communication can actually have, I thought, I'm not phrasing this right, but I thought it was a very complex situation.
Yeah.
And the way it was communicated and the way it was handled, like that needed a lot of delicacy. And I think perhaps not as much delicacy was shown in how the show handled it with a lot of delicacy and really well, but in the way the characters dealt with it was sometimes somewhat abrasive.
I'm so glad that you brought it up, because you're so right about how he wasn't able to talk about it. And then as Ella points out, when Sungyeom brought it up, he was literally saying, I assaulted someone, and everyone was just like, nope, we didn't see anything. You didn't do anything. You were just disciplining him, right? And he was like, no, I'm not going to let you get away with this. And the wall there was so strong. And then so for Wushik he literally had to go and like have his words translated into English and then back into Korean for people to actually hear what he was saying, which I thought was so... It like works so well on so many levels, because it's like, he's like trying to speak, nobody's understanding him, and then there's like the whole act of translation, which is it's used so beautifully in so many ways, where Miju is translating like literally for her job, but then she also is so good at sort of translating the world in a way that makes sense to Sungyeom. She kind of works on figuring out how to translate his language into a language that she understands, and it just works so well. I love all of that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like communication as a theme really played center stage in this show, with me too as a translator, or translating between languages. I think you made a really great point about her translating the world to Sangkyung and his language to other people in the world. I've again, for me, Wushik really stood out because of how communication placed him in a lot of trouble, and then however, eventually in the longer run, helped him find himself in a much better place. So,
and I also want to bring up one more thing. Sorry, Porma, then I'll let you speak. But I want to bring up the scene where after when she's working on that movie, and that American director basically like says all that racist stuff to the people on set. And then she's having that conversation with Sungyeom after she's basically been fired. I don't know if she's been fired yet, but anyway, it's at night and he like brings her food. She's drinking on those steps. And she's like, it's just so infuriating to me that like, I think so much about like every single word that I use in order to, be clear and to not hurt other people with my words. And then there's people who just say whatever, and they can, like use racial slurs or just like go on a power trip, and they don't even think about it. And I really loved how they connected communication to power, and like there's a lot of stuff about power in this drama, like about the bullying, about like, the class differences, and, there's, Assemblyman Key has his political power, and he like tweets like Trump. I thought that was a pretty he's like, his secretary was like, stop tweeting, sir. But I loved how they connected those two things, because it's so true. Like if you have power, you can like people will hear your voice. And if you don't, no matter how loudly you're screaming, people just shut your voice down. So
yeah,
that's true.
That.
Well said.
No, you guys just said everything.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I agree, and I agree. Yeah, it just very quickly. Yes, absolutely. This I've already said a lot about how the dialogues were just like building relationships, building. It was. Gee, this drama is just really good. Let's move on to something.
Let's go to the ending then. Let's move on to the ending. Or wait. We wanted to talk about our favorite things first, right?
Yes, we were. We did. This is a quote, by the way, if anybody wants to guess. These are a few of our favorite things.
Oh, come on. Everyone can guess this.
We all know this one. But guess anyway. Guess, because it's fun to put your comments up on screen. Yeah, what were some of your favorite scenes? Remy, what were some of your favorite scenes they haven't mentioned yet?
Other than episode 6 ending, which is like so beautiful. I actually really, I would love to see a drama with like Kim Woo-sik as the lead, fighting for his like running Olympic dreams or whatever. So for me, I really enjoyed watching the training, once Ki Sung-gyum started training him and like how that whole arc played out. There was that scene where Kim Woo-sik is running and he falls and he collapses, and Sun Kyung it's just like, how do you feel about what's happening? Oh, sorry, at my end, one sec. I'm okay, thank you.
Wow, good service.
That's excellent. And the name has been guessed by Ella, Natalie, and CBB.
And
also
Dr. P.
Nanan.
And Naya.
The Sound of Music.
Yes.
Woohoo! What's the name of the song?
These are a few of my favorite things. Isn't it? No, I don't know. I don't remember. That's what I call
the
that
part
song.
I
Like
remember.
raindrops on roses, whiskers on kittens.
Should we just start singing now?
Let's forego that part. I have so many favorite moments, honestly. I think practically the first scene, the first time they meet is so ridiculous.
Oh yeah, such a cute meet cute.
That was the best. It was so weird. I watched episode 1 and I was like, this is so weird. I love how weird this is. And it never totally lost that weirdness, which was great.
That is totally true. Oh yes, all of the sepia black and white scenes, like all of the Candy movie scenes were.
Yes,
so
yes. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes.
Because, I mean, especially because they had Miju and Dana play orphan children who there was 7 and 8-year-old, and I was like, that works. This totally works.
And then Chi-Boo is this like serial killer, like blood splatter.
And then she was like, I'll be your mom. And they were like, okay. And I was like, oh. Yeah, all the movie references. The Godfather reference is my favorite.
Oh my god, that was done so well.
Yeah.
It was so good. It was like it wasn't just like a line or, it was like a long, there was building anticipation. You heard the music and then like you slowly pan down and then there's her head and it was so good.
Oh, also when Sungyeom teaches Miju how to run, that's true, Alice. That was again. Oh, by the way, the whole elbow thing, I didn't know that, and I've been running for at least a year pretty regularly, and it does help. It improves how you run.
Really?
I learned that from this drama.
Wow,
apparently
advice.
My posture has been wrong for running for like the entire year.
The things dramas teach us,
right? Who knew? Oh, also Miju's love for guns, the fake gun thing. I initially I did not get it, but then I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, kind of makes sense that she also that real guns are not actually allowed to be civilian owned, so they make fake replicas. I didn't know any of this stuff, so it was like online discussions that educated me more about this. This drama has apparently taught me a lot more than I realized.
I also really loved wow, I totally lost my train of thought. Somebody else go.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
There was a scene where sorry, I'm obsessed with Woo-sik. Woo-sik, Sun Kyung, the guy who's always coming first in races, and Young-hwa, all of them meet, and this guy's like, you stay with Ki Sun Kyung, and he's like, you've been his friend.
Yes, that's
That
what
was
I wanted
funny.
to say. Any scene with Young-il was my favorite. And also just in general, like I loved how we constantly got new combinations of characters, and every time it was like so good and so entertaining. Because usually you just have these 4 characters, you have like different constellation of these 4 main characters, and like by episode 8, you're like, okay, let's have the same conversation again for the 30th time. But no, like every time we get these weird new combinations, like that scene where they come out and May's just on the slide, and then like Secretary Jung just like slowly emerges from the playground. And you're like, what is happening? Oh. I have to mention. Oh, I forgot. The birthday party where like Miju and Sungkyum are looking at each other and they're like heartbroken, and there's this romantic music and they're like all sad. And then in the side you see like everybody else just like come and they're like fighting. And it's like that scene in Parasite where they're just like all in a clump and they're fighting. And it's just like happening in the background. I died. Oh.
And that's where Secretary Chung and May kind of.
I love that too. Like this was done much later in a flashback. That moment that was like this tense post breakup moment where 2 heartbroken lovers were seeing each other across the space, and all of that stuff was just background to Secretary Jung and May's great love affair that was just starting.
It was so amazing because it just like slowly builds from the time that Taeung shows up to confront Younghwa, and then like this fight slowly like gets more people get added to the fight, and, and it just like keep like going out, and then you see the whole scene, and then later.
And I just want to add, like that's partly what I love about, like, nobody's a side character. Everyone clearly has their own lives and their own stories, and we're given glimpses of it. But like at no point does any one character live for other characters. Like I truly felt that everyone was a rich character, fleshed out their own lives. Like that was so nicely done. And the scene, like what it meant to different people and how that's shown to us really depicts that beautifully.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Like even for like Ye-chan, that's where her mom confronts her about boxing, and that's like another layer, you know? Like it was amazing. I also wanted to bring up how related to what you said, Remy, about nobody being a side character. Oh no!
Anita!
What's happening? I barely slept last night. I'm sorry, guys. I'm failing today. Never mind.
Okay, I like that. There was this one moment, actually a couple of moments. So you remember there was this one moment where Miju and May were in May's office, and they had this small, slightly pissy moment, and May kind of like Miju snapped at May and walked away, and then like 2 feet away, she like does an about turn, comes back and apologizes to May. That really got me. The other moment that really stood out for me was the actual confession scene. Like,
that was nice.
On the bench.
And like we said, like the awkwardness afterwards, like there was no, it's not like, hey, we confessed to each other, we kissed, and now we are totes in relationship, everything figured out. No.
I remembered what I was gonna say if I'm not gonna be like not allowed to speak because I failed so many times. sorry. No, it's totally not your fault. I'm just really tired today. So that related to like how everybody's on their own journey. I love that scene where like Sungyeom goes back to Miju's house for ramen, and she's like, we need to love ourselves. Like she was like, who do you think is the person who's going to stay with you the longest?
That was very meaningful.
And
Thanks for remembering that.
And she was like, it's me. I'm going to be the one that stays with myself the longest. So like, you need to love yourself. And she's like, that's how we could stay together for a long time, is if we love ourselves. And yeah, I loved that because it's so opposite of the usual, like, I'm gonna die for you.
Yeah.
You're the only one for me.
Yeah.
My life has meaning.
That was really nice. And like they retain their own identities, right? They're not only about the other person. That was really nicely done. I agree.
Yeah, that's true. Naya Yan, I'm sorry, asks if there was a time skip in episode 16, and I'm not sure if there was a time skip. There seemed to have been like kind of like a shift into montage situation while time passes.
I agree.
So because
Like they
Miju
showed
had
us the passage of time without.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because Miju started subtitling Candy's, movie, which is Candy, I think, codename Candy,
Codename
and then
Candy.
and then the movie more or less ends with the screening of that movie. So there was definitely a passage of time there.
But it wasn't like years, probably,
No.
A few months. And then you get to, I loved how this is, I think, maybe a good way to segue into our thoughts on the ending.
Yes, absolutely. So, thanks, CBB. But what did I put right?
Montage.
A montage.
Passage of
Right.
time.
Yes, that was a
am
perfect expression of
smart podcaster. That's what I am. Okay.
yeah.
So the last topic we cover is thoughts on the ending, and the quote is "Just keep swimming." This one's
swimming.
Oh, Alice makes a really good point. I love how she asked him if he wanted ramen, and the next shot was of them in bed. Sangyam asking where the ramen is.
And then he's totally trolling her. And like for once he actually knows what she means. And she's just like, wait, you don't know what that means. Yes,
Natalie,
Finding Nemo.
Ella. Yes, Finding Nemo. You're right. I didn't remember it actually. Anisa had to point out it was from Disney, and then I was like, wait, does it have something to do with fishes? Oh, I'm so bad at this. Okay. What were we talking about?
Just our thoughts on the ending.
Yeah.
That's right.
Just keep swimming, Korma. It's okay. Let's keep going. Yeah, we need to wrap this up. It's been an hour and 20 minutes. Sorry,
oh my
guys.
God.
We got too excited.
We kind of overshot by like 40 minutes at this point.
Wow. By the way, this time limit wasn't communicated to me.
It was mental.
It was more of a goal that we were
Okay.
vainly hoping for. But
Okay, so something that I had an issue with, as someone pointed out earlier, I'm sorry, I forget who the commenter was. I really did not like that they tried to kind of redeem the dad, Assemblyman Key, because he's so unredeemable. He should have just been left out in the cold while everyone was in the warm theater watching the release. Honestly,
I didn't want him. Yeah, like I liked that he kind of lost everything and was abandoned by everyone and he couldn't use them anymore. That was like perfect. But then like, why did he show up at the premiere and why does she accept the flowers from him? Like, ugh.
I thought of it as, I actually understood it a little differently. Like I thought that, you know how I mentioned there'd been a distance between the family members from the get-go. I think it's just that he's no longer part of their lives, but he's still a person that is part of the family, right? So he's come to the premiere, but like he doesn't sit with the actress. I think like you too, he sits on the other side of the. Overall, like I felt it was just like, you know, he's lost the election, so he doesn't have anything to use them for. Rather than say he has no use for them, he doesn't have anything to use them for anymore.
Yeah.
So maybe he's just being normal and nice now. Thank you so much. Sorry.
I guess
That's a good point. Also, Dr. Chi, of like she didn't make a big deal out of it. Like she just, like you said, took the flower, kept it moving. Like she just was like, okay, thanks. And it was still about her. It was her day. She didn't give him too much of her time. So yeah.
Yeah. So like I feel like he was just, you know, he's a character. He was there at the ending scene. But it wasn't necessarily an indication of them letting him enter their lives again. Like it was the premiere of a movie. He's there for his ex-wife. End of story.
Yeah, exactly. Like CBB at a great point. It was hard for me to watch him sit beside Hyun-bi too. It was. If there had been any kind of confrontation between the father and daughter before that happened, I would have been more comfortable. But the only communication we got to see between them before that was where he was lying to his daughter's face as she assured him that she'll take care of the scandal and won't affect her. And
it was like so painful to watch her like apologize or like being in that sort of thankful, grateful pose towards him when like we as the audience were like 90% sure that he was the one who did it in the first place. And it was so gross.
Yeah.
So gross.
And
even if he hadn't and she didn't know that, like he was the whole reason. Like he was like pimping her out at the golf course in the first place. So if he hadn't done that, which was like so obviously she knows that he did that. Obviously, like, I don't know. But I do think, like, it does show how people who are in these kind of abusive relationships for a long time kind of have a hard time letting go of their, you know, their love and their relationship with the abuser, because they had this conversation at one point. I don't remember when, like Sangyam and Eunbi, about how it was in some ways easier for Sangyam to detach himself and stand up to his father because he never really had a relationship with him in the first place. Whereas Eunbi did live at home. She did have more of a relationship with her parents. You know, like, he was always away and he never was at home. But she like apologizes to him, I think, at one point, where like he was so much more alone than she was. So I feel like maybe that it's trying to show that she's just like, she can't disengage herself as easily as he can. And it's realistic, you know, like, not everyone who goes through these kind of childhoods can just, like, you know, like, brush everything off and be like, yeah, I'm cutting you out of my life because you're a toxic influence. I'm going to live my best life. Like, that's unfortunately not how things always work. So
that's true. And I guess with that context in mind, it does make sense that Songyum was the one who could speak up in both situations, both in the professional. Oh, this is the point I wanted to make about Sangyum. I totally forgot. So in the professional field, Sangyum could make his voice heard because he had realized that at his peak, he was probably always going to stay second on the field. And he was okay with that. It wasn't like a horrible struggle for him, but he liked his achievements, but this is how far he was going to go. He knew he was going to retire. So he threw everything away to, help Wushik. And once he committed to that, he was not ready to back down, even though everybody was like, why are you doing this? But I found that was so practical of Songyum. Like, he was in a position of power. His voice was, even though it was suppressed, it was still much louder than Wushik and slightly harder to suppress, a lot harder to suppress than Wushik's. So he used that because he knew he was going to exit anyway. And similarly with his dad, he knew that his sister couldn't speak up against assemblyman. So he was the one who did it for her, and there was that point where Yunbi is like, well, why are you doing this? And he's like, you took care of me when I was a kid. You stood up for me. So now I'm standing up for you. And
I just want to touch upon something Dr. Chase pointed out. It's so gendered too. Guys can live on their own easier than women. It's like, actually that's agreed. Sankyam being a guy has it so much easier than Eunbi when it comes to
and women are socialized so much more to just not defend themselves and not speak up. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Also, Nayanan, you're absolutely right. I really wanted to see Ryan, at least a glimpse of this Ryan.
Yeah.
I was picturing him as like an alternate universe Ryan Gold, even though I know that's not the
case. Except I can't imagine Ryan Gold running away. It's just
that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what comes to my mind.
Dr. Chi asks why Sangyum retired, and he retired because one, he had kind of reached his peak, and he was also aging out of the sport, and two, because he had just decided he was going to like no longer do this thing. It was just, I suppose, a mental space that athletes get into at some point. So.
I also feel like he kind of reached his breaking point. And so he was thinking like, now is the time. Like, I'm finally going to stop taking all of this and I'm going to stand up for myself. And he did that in like every aspect of his life, not just in the sport, but with his father, like in the conversations that he started having with his mom and his sister, and kind of in the conversations he was having with Miju as well, which I think he hadn't really done that kind of thing with anyone before. And I feel like for him, he was like, well, I'm going to retire soon anyway. And even his father understood this, because when he asked him, he was like, just do it for 2 more years. So like, he is anyway aging out, like you said, Parma. And so he was like, why not use this moment and like give it a lot of impact instead of just like quietly fading away after, a successful career.
And also, we should remember that he had initially wanted to be a javelin thrower. This was not the career he had chosen. This was always the career his father had chosen. And he had kept at it and been good at it because, one, he is an athlete. And two, I suppose eventually he actually mentioned it at some point that he fell in love with running at some point because it cleared his mind. But it was not his first choice. So it kind of makes sense that giving up running in a way would also be gaining independence. So, okay. So I just want to give a shout out to the comments here. Ella Frapses just mentioned that apparently in Discord, the fans are obsessed with Brian and they want him to be Kim Sun-ho.
I
The Kim
thought
Sun-ho cameo was
Kim
such
Sun-ho
a
was gonna
waste.
be. I thought
by
that's
the
what he
way.
was gonna do when he came on. I was like, wait,
Yeah, but
what?
that cameo was such a waste. Like, what was the point at all of that particular scene? They could have done so much.
I
It would
will
have been
just
a
now
random guy
pretend.
that tried to flirt with Miju, and then Sun Kim came in. Like, it could have been. There could be so much there.
That's so
But-
tropey.
Or like anything.
Listen, Remy, if Sangyam had come in while Miju was being flirted with by another guy, he would have just like politely taken a seat slightly separately
Yeah,
till Miju
I
was
would
done
have loved
talking.
to see that. Like, I would have loved to see that. I think that would be super funny. Or like a black and white, like a movie thing. So I think Kim Sun-ho's cameo could have been so much more. It could have been
It could have been. I would
It was
have
kind of a
really
waste.
liked it if it was Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I think we are fine. We are at 1 hour 30 minutes now.
We
really should be
have,
wrapping
yeah,
up.
we've exhausted ourselves. We've exhausted you. Thanks for sticking around. Thank you so much, Remy, for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's always so much fun.
Can you tell our listeners where they can find you and your work on the internet?
So I am at soulbeats.com. We also review dramas. We review a lot of K-pop. We talk about industry events, sociocultural events. Please join us. We are pretty critical, not always positive. So be prepared for
Critical
that.
in a good way, though. Critical in a good way.
Yeah.
Very smart.
So please find us there. And otherwise, my Twitter is just @_PAYODHI. Yep. That's
Yes, go check her out. Her writing is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you
And
go ahead.
and we're really bad at this patter, but we're gonna give it a shot. And you can find Dramas Over Flowers on Twitter at Dramas Over Flow. And Anisa, what was next?
Your personal Twitter.
Personal Twitter, right? My personal Twitter is @FestiveFast.
And
And
you
my-
had it up the whole time in case anybody didn't.
Because I'm smart like that. Which way is this?
And my personal Twitter is @Anisa Khalifa _ And you can find us on Instagram at dramasoverflowers _
Woohoo.
Yes. And we are on Facebook. Just Google or search on Facebook, Dramas Over Flowers. But most especially, come and read Saya's Drama Addicts Diary on our blog, Dramas Over
Really, I
Flowers.
have to check it out. Nopa is brilliant. Nopa is like, I have to check this out.
Thank you.
Yeah, she has a way with words. She like puts it right exactly on and in a way that makes you laugh for days. So and you can always email us at dramasoverflowers@gmail.com. We loved your emails.
We did. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for joining us. Have a great Sunday.
Have a great Sunday, everyone, and happy
Bye.
Valentine's Day.
Happy
Yes.
Valentine's Day. Yeah.
Happy Lunar New Year.
Happy Lunar New Year.
Bye.